We've lived in the era of great engineering, where man thought that he could overpower nature and accomplish everything. I think all of these disasters over the past 50 years have shown us that nature can come back. After Katrina, we learned a lot of lessons about regulations, first of all, and our management of our flood risk reduction regulations were outdated. We wanted to make sure that, first of all, that as we rebuilt, the communities would be insurable. And the insurance industry was very clear: unless we changed our building codes, they weren't going to insure the properties, the buildings, and everything that was coming back. So the building codes were changed as well. The state legislature improved the building codes, adopted the International Building Code, adopted many of the Miami-Dade requirements that they created after Hurricane Andrew. And so that made a big difference in how we actually built our buildings to withstand hurricanes and floods and those sorts of things. I will say one of the issues that we have not yet thought through in the U.S. is how do we get ahead of it? So we have a really good history of responding to disaster and going to Congress and allocating billions of dollars to respond. After Hurricane Katrina, when I was at the Louisiana Recovery Authority, we had a motto: safer, stronger, smarter, so that the investments that we made in infrastructure and planning were done in a way that was not just reactive to Hurricane Katrina, but would help us in the future with disasters that may come our way in the future. And so I think there have been lessons learned from Hurricane Katrina, which was really the first touch point in the United States about how you need to invest in making sure it doesn't happen again, or at least mitigate a great deal of that. And you've seen that repeated in Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Maria, and others. And I am sure, sitting here today, that this is a conversation going on in the Carolinas with Hurricane Florence. And so the conversation about how we invest on the front end, how we think about development so that we're not as exposed to risk as we have been, is something that has followed this trajectory since Hurricane Katrina. It is really important for a city like New Orleans that has pushed back nature for so long to understand that actually nature can be our saving grace. Capturing stormwater in large reclaimed areas of the city that can act as a sponge for some of the runoff, or in Paris, for example, with the Oasis project of how we can use schoolyards to take in, to manage water, but also help out in heat waves. These are all things that are based on natural systems that have the ability to either cool us or convey water or other things. And we're now learning that maybe it's a more integrated approach between engineering and natural systems, or engineering with natural systems, that can help us survive the next time period. The Resilient NOLA project was funded in part to face future threats. And we needed to understand what those future threats and risks were, how you quantify them, and then how do you develop a strategy to really organize ourselves for that. And so we went through a year-long process to identify what the risks are. They were categorized into three components: adapt to thrive, so how the city can continue to adapt to the changing climate; connect to opportunity, how can we ensure that the citizens of the city are connected to the opportunities to transform either their properties or get jobs in the green economy, so that moving forward there's sort of a equity of opportunity across the city, so everybody would have the resources to be prepared. And then third, transforming city systems, which was really looking at smart city systems, technology, and other things that can help us prepare and manage our risk. And the reason why the Resilient New Orleans strategy was important was because it was, for us, a pivot from recovery to resilience. So from just thinking about recovering from Hurricane Katrina to pivoting to how we could be a more resilient city for the future. And I think that's a lesson for a lot of places that have seen disasters, which is you take the disaster, you understand why it happened, and what the risks associated with that disaster was, but also start to look at what the future holds for you. Because if you really just concentrate on that one disaster, you're going to be blindsided by something that may come that's completely different 2 or 3 years after. You're not going to move Bangkok, which has tens of millions of people. You're not going to move Tokyo. You're not going to move any of these cities. And so the challenge before us is, okay, we're here. How do we begin to design with these cities, understanding what the future is, and start making these changes? And I think that's both a challenge and an opportunity, and it's actually what makes the work exciting.